Hi, everyone. Mark Fuhrer with my friend Stephen Prutsman today. He's in San Francisco. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
You bet. Thanks, Mark.
So we're going to talk just a little bit about career and kind of music in general here to start off with. I was thinking, I mean, I know you as a jack of so many different trades, and you've done basically everything that's I can imagine an artist would want to do through music. And for most people, you've done a lot more. I mean, what you're capable of is extraordinary, and I'm always kind of blown away when I'm able to see what your creative output is coming up with next. I have to ask, just because I don't know you that well, but I know you. I've known you for a few years. Like, with everything you've done, are there things that you're itching to still do, or are there things that you haven't done yet that you really are kind of chomping at the bit to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is kind of outside of my family. My time is spent between music and advocacy for the developmentally disabled. So there's for the latter, it's kind of a constant back and forth as to where I'm most used for that. Right. And you know, I keep learning along the way. Certainly on that front, there's a lot that I want to do. I want to, or not that I can actually do stuff, but participate in greater efforts to help our developmentally disabled folks and their families live safe, happy, and thriving lives. And there's a lot of work to be done on that front. Here in the States, at least, I think it's Canada has its own challenges as well, but together we all need to do more. On the music front, it's a lot of these different activities actually came as a result of just opportunities and sometimes out of necessity. I needed to make money as a kid, so that turned into playing in restaurants and clubs and stuff. And that also led to a lot of learning the standards, for example. So that's around the age of maybe 32 or so, 33. I had found this was before kids. I found myself with not knowing which direction to go, and then some opportunities came up to actually arrange music for Kronos. And that led to 10-year relationships, different things. So different things sort of taking advantage of what might come along, particularly if I am not so active, in just recreating Western art music, playing, dead European white guys stuff, which I love. I mean, I love playing Beethoven and Bach and so on. For whatever reason, in my 20s, it didn't kind of turn out that that's what I was going to do exclusively. Right. Maybe it's because I didn't have like a kick-ass career on that front. I can see people who had careers, kind of designed for them in their mid-teens, usually just keep doing it because they're well rewarded financially. They get a lot of, adulation. So why should they go try something else? Right. It was just a little different for me. There's certain things that, I still want to write for piano. That's kind of the best. As I continue on, I'm in my 50s, Mark. So I'm like much older than you.
You are so old.
I'm there. I want to. I think that's basically what I kind of do best. Although the arranging is a lot of fun as well. So I want to do that. I'm really interested in doing more kind of multimedia projects. I'm fascinated with experimental video, and particularly the kind of, high def, where colors just pop out at you. I dream of trying to find a way to do that with orchestras or a bit larger ensembles on stage. Usually when I've seen a lot of kind of productions where symphonies or large ensembles try to link video with live music, and it's more often than not, it's not successful. Right. Particularly because it's the stage. I mean, one reason stages aren't designed that way. If I go to San Francisco Symphony and they try to do something with video, in the past, I've seen small screens sort of come down, a square. And so it's not the kind of wraparound with great visuals. The other challenge is that is this kind of how do you can you put visual or video with traditional concert music? That's always tricky. I don't think anybody wants to see, a new video next to Beethoven 9. That doesn't really work, or a Brahms Requiem or something. So it's just finding the right kind of concert music to do that, finding the right video artist, or if it's a new product, who comes first, the composer or the video artist? And I'd love to see that there's kind of an equality. If the visual is too busy, people stop listening. Mm-hmm. If the music is too busy, people stop watching. And it's also a challenge with a lot of the silent film stuff, although there are templates for that almost. There's the kind of, in the third film that we'll be doing, Mighty Like a Moose, it's a lot of ragtime, a lot of Charleston, a lot of kind of music indicative of the time period. A lot of it's underscore, so it's just chop, going on if there's something going on at the visually. So that's a big challenge. I'd love, though, someday to see these kind of lush, really interesting experimental video products that a lot of people are working on, and then find a way to integrate music along with that. That's kind of where I'm looking at right now.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, I think being somebody who's trained in jazz and basically has explored the world of improvisation for many years, I find if I go back to classical music, I am able to sometimes tap into what I will dare say, oh, I think I understand now what Schubert meant, or I think I understand what Tchaikovsky meant or Haydn meant. I think I get it now. Right. Which is something I didn't get when I would first learn how to play a lot of those pieces when you're younger. When you're younger, you think, okay, well, I have to play it this way, and my teacher says this is good style, and I'm tune and in time, and I'll win my competition playing like this, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea of getting down to a level of investigation in terms of expressiveness that then allows you to see all other forms of expression as something you can relate to, I think that's something we're now inundated with. I mean, I'm a bit of a film junkie when it comes down to it, and I can't stand a lot of the stuff I end up watching. I'll turn it off within 5 minutes, and it's a large part due to the fact that I just feel like there's no sensitivity between the oral and the visual. That's just not, things are usually kind of done for a monetized reason anyway. But on top of that, there's just no understanding. There's no meeting place. Do you find that are there people you're meeting that you have some common ground with for these types of projects?
Well, there's, when you talk about film, I think, film music for like commercial film, that's a different kind of beast. Right. And I don't do a lot of that. Neither are they, knocking on my doorstep to do it. So it's not, that's kind of, I might do it if
you are in your 50s now. You're in your 50s now.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, that kind of poses its own. There is a kind of 2019 formula for writing a good score to a Hollywood flick. There is this formula that they, some guys are really good at. And I'm a film junkie too, and some of the most beautiful. I'm crazy about Iranian cinema these days.
Wow.
Stuff that's going on. If you listen to that, I mean, like an old Kiarostami film, like Close Up. There's no music in there at all.
Right.
I mean, I love that. I really, maybe at the closing credits there'll be some kind of just hint at some kind of sound that just closes it out. But a lot of Satyajit Ray films from the 50s, and there's not a lot of music. Maybe one little take, Ravi Shankar doing something from for 30 seconds with a landscape shot or something like that. But that's really that's the extent of it. So, but for concert, again, I kind of make a distinction between commercial film and then experimental video.
Right.
what it was, video art, I guess, for lack of a better word. And to be truthful, I've been in touch with a few people. I've yet to find the perfect partner on that.
Wow.
And I imagine there'll be as I keep going with this, there's going to be a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep open. It's just like new musicians that I'm fascinated with continuing to meet new players. Right. That's important to me. I mean, one of the things that I objected to most over the years with these classical music summer festivals is they always invite the same people over and over and over and over.
You noticed that, did you?
Yeah. I mean, where does it comes from? There's a couple of reasons why that happens. One, most of the time, music directors too lazy to go seek out new talent. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, they know what works. They know that, hey, she worked out okay last time, so let's just do it again. Right. Number three is that sometimes they want to develop relationships so that they get hired to other festivals. That's another kind of scratch that, and that's just not just with music. That's in every career, basically. So I was always thinking that not just for audiences, but also for the kind of the music world at large, it's much better to do rotation, give a lot of people different chances. Mm-hmm. In Latin America, when I used to run that show down there. So that I digress. Back to video art, I think I'm just going to keep looking at different artists, try to find an interesting way to merge new music with video. And it doesn't have to be my music. I'm also listening to tons of new composers and trying to find a marriage there that's appropriate. It's tough, but I love doing it.
Who are some of the new composers you're kind of...
Speaking of Iran, there's a guy, Hushar Khayyam, and he's a beautiful composer. He's stuck in North Tehran, unfortunately. He can't get out. And there's not a lot, as you would imagine, not a lot of opportunity there. But he wrote a gorgeous kind of a score to a documentary on a female artist, painter, sculptor, who just passed away. She was in her 90s. She was stuck. She too was kind of stuck in Tehran. But he wrote such a beautiful set of just for quartet miniatures that complemented her visual art. Okay. And that just coincidentally, Abbas Kiarostami's son, who is a documentarian, and he made that film. So the quality of the imagery, not just of her art, but also these gorgeous mosques in a place like Shiraz, the Mirror Mosque there, really complements the music. So that's something I promote, I push for. It's also a great product, I would think, because it's kind of, what's the word? You can travel with it if you got a good projector and a laptop. So that other quartets would be interested in doing, and there's many wins on that front. So I love his music. There are a few others that I'm looking towards. I like youngish composer. I mean, by young I mean my age and younger, because I like thinking that's always the
50s are the new 30s.
That's right. There you go. Yeah. So anyway, love to keep looking. So that's it.
So, I interviewed a few weeks back, I interviewed this lady by the name of Leslie Ting, who is doing a presentation for us here in Stratford this summer as well. And her project marries visual, shall we say, degradation with some music. And it's basically the story of her mother in the last 2 years of her life losing her sight. Now, what's really kind of unusual is that this girl, Leslie, who's a violinist, she was trained as a violinist, but then gave up music and became an optometrist. And so as an optometrist, to watch her mother die over a period of 2 years and lose her sight at the same time was this really troubling thing for her. So she decided to give up optometry and she went back into being a musician, but she didn't bother going back into the streams that she was used to. She decided to go into these creative paths that marry a bunch of different forms and genres and ideas and templates. And I mean, it's a very touching and moving thing that she's put together. But she said something to me in the interview which has stuck with me, because we were talking about sensory overload and how our senses either naturally or do not naturally jibe with our environment. And what you were just saying about trying to play with new people all the time, I find that when I do that, one of the things that's exciting about it is that you are challenged in your senses to kind of organize yourself and then hopefully grow through that experience. She said, we were talking about the difference between sight and hearing, and she said, have you ever noticed that if you're in a car driving and the rain is really, really heavy, that you'll turn the sound down on the radio so that you can drive better? And I thought that's a really interesting observation, which I've done myself. You know, when you really think about it, the idea that you're trapped in this zone where rain is pelted down on your car, and maybe your car stereo is getting in the way of another sense. And I think to myself sometimes, those types of things that we're not aware of as listeners to something like an art form like music, we're not aware of how our senses are being manipulated or not. In fact, one of my best friends, who sadly is no longer with us, he used to famously say when we would go see a film together, he'd say, "Okay, manipulate me." And that's kind of exactly what would happen. We'd go to see these popular films. And I enjoy that experience immensely. But there are ways in which, if you are allowing yourself to get into a zone where all of those senses are being played with, just like playing with a new person, and you're open to whatever those information feeds are all about, well, there's a sense of growth and enrichment that I actually think that a certain age of crowd really wants. I think a certain age of crowd wants to give up what they've known forever and say, well, what else is there out there? You know, my kids are gone now, and we're empty nesters or whatever. And they say, well, I'm looking for some other experience of enrichment. How can we get that? And I'm hoping that that's moving forward with, being the designer of programming for a 6-week festival, that there's a real need out there for that, and there's a real appetite for it. So, and that's exactly, I think, where people like yourself come in, because you have all these different streams that you're tapped into, and the audience, having you here in town for a few days in a row, the audience getting to see you with all those different shades of your abilities. Because a lot of times people will hear an artist and they'll say, oh, this is so-and-so, they play piano, and I heard them play Beethoven. And if they were exposed to that same person suddenly playing bebop with a bunch of blowers on saxophone or whatever, part of their brain would go, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. This is not how I understand this artist. But I do think that we're seeing so many more people now, like yourself, and dare I say myself, that we're interested from the get-go with an awful lot more of what could be together and used for really, honest expression. Call it work.
Yeah. No, I think and this is the way too, the way I look at it, Mark. It's kind of the way it used to be.
Yes.
I like to talk about, street musicians, gypsy musicians. We'd go around from town to town, and we'd do whatever we could to get some money. I mean, if it's tap dancing, if it's singing a particular song, I think things diverged between the ability or the need to kind of focus on one thing. It happened around the Second World War, or a little bit earlier, where this interesting new professional path of only recreating music of people who have died.
Right.
And out of that, people who have died, we kind of determine which manuscript is more worthy of than another, right? So that we, over time, we just determined that, wow, Mozart's music, that's really amazing stuff. There's some other guys that lived around his time, not quite as amazing stuff. So you look at the quality of each piece, you look at the output, whether or not there's a lot of that, is why we're so amazed with Bach's output, with just about everything he wrote is gold. Right. Mozart, Beethoven, every composer. So anyway, so the idea that, one would dedicate one's life only to recreating the great works of the past, that's a relatively new profession.
Yes.
And there's reasons why that kind of took off. It would take a while to talk about why that career path was so attractive. But in a sense, I think that we'll still have people who do that. I mean, they're all over the place. Where that's, there's even people who will only play Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms.
I know some of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them are able to make a living doing that. But in the end, it comes down to, if you're talking about your audience there, it's thinking about, now where do I go? I'm an empty nester. I've got some free time on my hands. I'm not gonna have starve. So what am I gonna do with my life now? Those are big questions, and I love the fact that so many of us, determined to almost change careers. Like your friend there who wrote, who's a musician, an optometrist, went back to music. We only get one shot at this life, and why not be curious about a lot of things and explore, jump through, try them out, So, but I'm really interested in meeting her. Will I be there when she's there?
No, you guys don't have your paths crossed.
We don't cross. Okay. Well,
I can send info about her show.
Please. I want to see it. That's fascinating stuff to me, and I bet it's really meaningful.
Well, I find it to be that way. And one interesting add-on to that whole thing is that she had blind people as part of the process of putting the show together. And,
oh my God!
And I think that is, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, that just makes no sense to me that you wouldn't do something like that. So,
wow.
Anyway, look, I'm thrilled to have this conversation. Obviously, we could talk for hours and hours.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to having you cross the border and come up here to Stratford. And I look forward to seeing you personally. It'd be great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, and we'll get a chance to jam and hang. And
that's great.
Yeah, it'll be a great time. So thanks for this today, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.